So we may have received some further teases that the Paladin will be the secret release of Season 11. Now, if you haven't been following this saga around Diablo 4 and Season 11 specifically, Season 11 was originally supposed to release on December 9th, but it was pushed back until December 11th and much later into the night, which just happens to be right when the 2025 Game Awards ends. So like an hour after, we will get the release of Season 11 of Diablo 4. We already know that Diablo 4 is going to be revealing its expansion at the Game Awards, and now it seems that because of them pushing the season back, there is going to be some shadow dropped content within Season 11. There's no other reason for them to push the season back, especially pushing it back to very late into the night and on a Thursday, which they never release stuff on Thursdays. Now, one of the biggest and in my opinion least likely theories is that the Paladin, which is the theorized class for the next expansion, will be shadow dropped into Season 11, most likely through a pre-order of the new expansion. Now, there's been actually a handful of information that this could be the case. First off was some of the new screenshots we've gotten of the new cosmetics for Season 11 from the Battle Pass. We did get a look at what looks to be a flail. We currently don't have a flail weapon in the game, and while there's a chance it's just like a mace that looks like a flail, a lot of people took that as another piece of evidence that the Paladin is going to be shadow dropped into Season 11, and this new cosmetic is specifically for the Paladin, which would use a flail. But we have since gotten some further things that may point towards this potentially being true. Now, before we go into that, I did want to say I still think it's a pretty low chance that this actually happens, because while shadow dropping the Paladin into this season would be absolutely crazy and generate a ridiculous amount of hype, there are a handful of reasons of why I don't think this would be the case. And one of the biggest ones that I didn't mention in my previous video is that we know the developers are working on a skill tree overhaul or massively expanding the skill tree. In fact, this is pretty much the only overhaul we know of and have been told about that they want to work on. Out of all of the big overhauls behind the scenes we've been teased at, the developers did say in the past that they want to take all of the gameplay affecting things out of the legendary aspect system and put those all in the skill tree and have the aspect system just be power increases. And once they do that, they will at a minimum have to massively expand the skill trees, more than likely overhaul them, at least overhaul how they're displayed to us. And I do think it'd be pretty weird for them to release the Paladin into Season 11 when there is a pretty good chance that with the expansion or a season around the expansion that we will be getting skill tree overhauls. So they would have to essentially have a skill tree with this version of skill trees for the Paladin in Season 11 and then have the updated version in the future whenever those skill trees are updated. So again, I still think them shadow dropping the Paladin into Season 11 is a very low chance for that to happen, but if it does happen, it would create a ridiculous amount of hype. Now, this new information actually has a few different things that may point towards a Paladin either being shadow dropped or just that they're working on another class for the new expansion, which we pretty much already know. Now, the first one was back during the last developer live stream that was pretty recent when they were going over the new season ranks, which is essentially the replacement of the season journey, when they were looking at the new pet of the season ranks, which every new season journey or now season ranks, you would always get a pet for one of the later completions. When they scrolled over this pet, it had a supported class section for the pet specifically. And what would normally be shown is all of the classes in the game, the 6 different classes. But when they scrolled over the pet for Season 11, there was 7 classes. There was the Sorcerer, the Druid, the Barbarian, the Rogue, the Necromancer, and the Spiritborn. But then there was a symbol for the 7th class. Now, this was a placeholder symbol because it was just the Barbarian symbol again. And this is pretty common in development where they will add in a lot of the hooks and different things for the new class, but a lot of the times they'll just use like placeholder icons or even text that will usually say like placeholder or something. So I do think this is probably something like that where they obviously are working on the class for the new expansion and they've just added that into some of the new things in the build they were using at this time. And instead of having a Paladin icon, they just did a placeholder of a Barbarian icon. But what's also really interesting about this is that after that developer developer live stream, they also released a blog post going over everything we're getting with Season 11, including all the changes, and one of the screenshots showed them again scrolling over the pet of the season ranks, and this time this pet just says supports all classes. It doesn't say supports these classes and then symbols of all the classes. Now this could just be a UI update because a pet isn't really class specific. They've not actually released any like class specific pets or anything. So it could just be an update of that, or it could be them kind of realizing that the 7th class icon or a 7th icon was on this pet and they removed all that for this screenshot. So there is a few possibilities, but that is another small thing that could be pointing towards the Paladin coming with Season 11. Now I think the bigger and much more interesting piece of information that could point towards a Paladin being in Season 11 is with the Season 11 Reliquary. Now, if you haven't played Diablo in a while, the Reliquary is just a replacement for the Battle Pass. It essentially splits up all of the rewards into these different sections. You can go earn any of the different things whenever you want. So the first section is all of the free stuff with the season name on it. So with Season 11, it would be Divine Intervention is the free one. Then you have the second section, which is weapons, the third, which is beasts, and the fourth, which is armor. So all the rewards are essentially just categorized in this new version of the Battle Pass. But the really interesting part is how many rewards are in the Reliquary with Season 11. Because if you go back to any other Reliquary we had, they all had the same amount of rewards per section. So the free section would have 9 possible rewards, the weapons would have 8, beasts would have 8, and armor would have 9. But going into Season 11, the armor section has 10 rewards. Now, why would that be? That could just be them adding another cosmetic. But once you realize what's in these different sections, usually you realize that one of the possible options of why there's now 10 rewards is that they had to add one more section for the Paladin specific armor set. And someone actually did a write-up of everything in these different Reliquary sections on Reddit. And they just essentially go through all the different rewards through all the different sections. So let's say for the weapons section, that's 8 out of 8. It's been 8 out of 8 in every previous season. So it would be 6 weapon transmogs. There would be 1 additional weapon transmog, and then there would be a piece of the armor set because all of the different sections also have 1 armor set reward. So once you get to the end and have unlocked everything, you have 1 armor set that could be used by all classes. And then in the armor section, there are also 6 of the rewards that are all armor sets for each of the different classes. So for this season, it would be the Brimstone Crusader set for each class. So that would be 6 rewards. Then you would get 1 portal as a reward, 1 additional weapon transmog, and then you would also have the final piece of the transmog set that you get a piece of in every section. But that's only 9, and even if you go to the list that shows all of the different rewards depending on the type of battle pass you buy on the official website, it doesn't really tell you what that 10th reward would be. So it would make complete sense that in the armor section they had to add the full other armor sets for the Paladin. Now, I think the biggest rebuttal to this is that they just added a armor set for the Paladin, but we're not going to be able to play the Paladin yet. There is a pretty good possibility that during the Game Awards, when the expansion is revealed, we also get the new class revealed. There's a pretty high chance of that. And then obviously Season 11 would be after those reveals. So maybe they just added an armor set that you can earn in Season 11 for the Paladin, but you won't be able to play the Paladin yet. They just added that in. So you get a bit more for paying for the Battle Pass, and then you have a cool armor set for when the Paladin is actually released. But this is another small thing pointing at the potential of the Paladin being shadow dropped with Season 11. But like I mentioned, I still think the Paladin coming with Season 11 is a pretty low chance. I think it's a almost certainty that they are going to be releasing some type of content or something with Season 11 that we've never been told about. Some shadow drop of new content or some new system, maybe tied into the expansion. Because again, there's zero reason for them to push the season back till after the expansion is revealed, especially since they're pushing this season back to a Thursday, which they never release things on Thursdays, and they're pushing it back to late into the night. It's almost midnight for me when it releases. It's going to be close to 9 at night for California, where this game is developed. So they would more than likely have to have all the developers stay overnight for the season release. So there is definitely a good reason to why they pushed the expansion back. It's more than likely some new content. We just don't know what that is yet. But there is some small piece of information pointing at the possibility being the Paladin actually coming with Season 11. But that's all I want to go over. So thanks for watching.